Time for a chat with Pat. Who you got today, Pat?
Oh, today we have one of my favorites, Derek Rotty. He's husband, father, teacher, freelance writer, and he has written extensively on Catholic history, culture, faith formation, and family. And he has a book published, Prophet of Hope. Fulton Sheen responds to the modern world. He does a lot of writing on Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who is one of my favorites. And so we're going to be talking today about an article entitled, it's on Catholic Exchange, called "And Then What?" Fulton Sheen on contentment contingencies. Good morning, Derek. How you doing today?
Good morning, Pat. It's great to be with you as always.
I know. I love talking to you. Hey, tell me, first of all, another great article, but explain to our audience what he mean and what Sheen meant by contentment contingency, so they get this idea.
Yeah. So he wrote a weekly newspaper column, syndicated, and a couple of his earliest columns. One of them was titled directly Contentment, and the other was titled Joy from the Inside. And essentially what he was doing there is drawing from his psychological research or his psychological understanding about the need for peace in the soul and the source of peace. And ultimately he reminds us again that peace and contentment is not something that can come from the outside. It has to be an inside spiritual reality. So that's generally what he's getting at. He gets us to the point where we start to ask the question that we typically will ask when we say, "Oh, if I have this thing, I'll be content," or if I make this level of money, I'll be content. And then we start to ask, well, then what?
Yeah.
Especially if we reach those goals. And then what? What's next? Am I really content? No, because what we realize is that when we reach those outward things or those outside things, they don't bring us contentment. And in fact, in the article or in these articles that he wrote, and I deal with this in my article, he says the ego is an insatiable animal, basically. Like it will gobble, 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 and keep gobbling. It will never be satisfied.
Yeah. And I think in our world, and I wonder if you see it this way, Derek, it seems like if anybody's content, it almost seems like it's an idea of, well, they're just lazy. Why aren't they trying to attain more, right? But Sheen talks about there are other causes of discontentment. And what were those causes that he tells us we've got to be cautious of?
Yeah, ego certainly was his number one, which is ultimately pride.
Right.
And then he lists several of the other capital sins, envy and greed, and he lists the few specifically. Jealousy is another one he lists there in those series of articles.
And what is his solution to this? Because I think certainly we don't get that message in our world. We always think bigger and better is bigger and better. So
right.
This and we wonder why we don't have peace, right? Because we don't have internal peace. So tell us, how did Sheen see solutions to this?
Yeah, the main thing that he said in these series of articles and other places for sure is that the solution is to excise, to say no to things, right? To say no to more, and to be content within limits and boundaries. So it's not just monetary, but it's it's even with our time and our schedules. Like, we have a tendency in our world to just amass more and more things and more activities. I'm in the middle of May with 4 kids at home, and there's always something, and it sounds good because we're being active with the kids and all that, and then at the end of it, it's like I don't have peace because I've just expanded too much and not limited myself or my family. It could be with experiences. Like, I have to travel all the time to get that next experience, that next high, so to speak. And Sheen says, no, we have to really rein ourselves in, or let ourselves be reined in, because God doesn't intend to give us everything we want. We are made better. We are pruned by not getting the things we want.
And that whole idea of the gospel tells us, right, where our heart is, that's, or where our treasure is, that so is our heart. So this idea, when he says the gospel, seek ye first the kingdom of God, so often we're seeking all kinds of other things, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. The kingdom of me, right? The kingdom of
I like that.
my home is my castle. My family is mine to do with what I will, to raise the way I will, and it comes back to stewardship. That all of it is a gift from the Lord. And if we cultivate this heart of gratitude for the gifts that we do receive, and even the gifts that He decides not to give us, we'll be in a much better place as far as contentment and peace.
So, Derek, you have a lot of information on Fulton Sheen. Obviously, you wrote a book on him, and I'm still working on getting you on the show. Especially during the time when we're getting ready for his beatification. What
Right.
kind of things, besides this article, is wonderful? What other kinds of teachings, with your in-depth look at Archbishop Sheen, have really set with you and really maybe changed the way you have engaged life and your family has engaged life?
Oh yeah. So I have been incredibly blessed over the last 5 years to dig into Sheen and dig into his writings, particularly. To choose just one is really difficult. But there are a few. Like right now, the one that's coming into my head is in my book. I dealt with Fulton Sheen responding to some of the ideas of Jack Kerouac, who was a very popular author in the 1950s and 1960s, and conveyed this idea of hedonism, like do what feels good,
Right.
to the American culture, especially young people in America in the 50s and 60s. And Sheen responds to that by saying, no, we're not made for doing whatever makes us feel good. We're made for the things that the Lord gives to us. And yes, He does want us to have pleasure, but that's not the be all and end all. And reining things in and actually excising or eschewing pleasures for the sake of a higher good is what Sheen would present as the answer. And then the other place would simply be, his magnus opus, Life of Christ, right? That's a thing that you can go back to again and again at any point of the liturgical year and just find such richness. It's the result of him meditating on the Gospels over, 30, 40, 50 years.
Are you going to be involved in any way with the celebration this fall?
Well, I am hoping that we can get tickets to the Mass. None of that's been released yet, but we've already got our Airbnb booked in St. Louis, and we're just trusting the Lord. And I'm doing some things for my own diocese, and I don't know anything yet about anything beyond that.
Oh, wonderful, Derek. Thanks so much for being with us. You're always a joy on the show. Have a good week ahead.
Thank you. You too, Pat. God bless.
Bye-bye.